Ibn Arabi, Rumi, Mulla Sadra. Which one should you read and follow? 3 paths, 3 temperaments, one way. But in order to walk on that one way, which thinker should you choose to read and follow? Would you like to learn through reason and proof, unveiling, or poetry? To be able to make an informed and right decision, there are several factors that you need to examine, and I'm going to be helping you ease that process. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. In this video, I'm going to be helping you self-diagnose which of the 3 main thinkers in Islamic tradition should you choose and why. Ibn Arabi belongs to what is called taḥqīq, that is the school of realization. In this school, knowledge is realized and verified, actualized in the heart through mystical unveiling. Ibn Arabi harmonizes Quranic hermeneutics, ontology, imagination as an ontological realm, and mystical unveiling. Mulla Sadra, on the other hand, is a systematic philosopher of hikmat al-muta'aliyah, that is, the transcendental theosophy. Sadra is literally the figure who had this grand synthesis. He synthesized Burhan, that is, rational proof, reason, philosophy, with gnosis, irfan, and illumination, ishraq, together with Quranic exegesis into one coherent metaphysical framework. Rumi is the master of poetry. His Mathnawī and Fīhī put you through stories, narratives, dialogues to transform you ethically and imaginally through his imaginal poesis. In his Dīwān-i Shams, his other famous work, also called Dīwān-i his project is different. He laments of the separation from the divine beloved, that is God, and yearns, longs to connect and unite with the beloved. In terms of methodology, Ibn Arabi is going to be pushing you to see reality with 2 eyes, with reason, as he tells us, and imagination. That is, the perceptive ability that takes place in the world of imagination as an ontological plane. Ibn Arabi's primary method and tool is mystical hermeneutics. He contrasts realization with imitation, saying that one should verify knowledge through the mystical unveiling in the heart, to see the reality authentically and without limitation and distortion. Ibn Arabi is going to be telling you to walk, to see with philosophy, reason, metaphysics on the one hand, and imaginal perception on the other, receiving divine truths and realities through symbolism. Understanding the ineffable, not through philosophy that cannot be explained properly, but through symbols in the world of imagination, through symbolic esoteric sciences, to be able to comprehend the ineffable as much as this medium allows you. There are several important elements in Ibn Arabi's works that if you choose to go with him, if you choose to read and follow him, you need to understand properly. The first one, as you have already heard, is the doctrine of wahdat al-wujud, the oneness of being or unity of existence, which is his famous ontological grammar, where he sees the only real existence as God, and the human beings and all other created beings as manifestations of that reality, of that manifestation of that one single existence. God discloses his undifferentiated essence through his names and attributes, the whole world being the multiplicity of reflections, manifestations, tajalli, plural tajalliyat, of that one single reality that is pure existence, divine essence. Ibn Arabi is going to be making you familiar. You will be engaging with the world of imagination, alam al-khayal or alam al-mithal, a real ontological realm that goes between as the barzakh, ismuth, between the world of pure spirits and a material world. He's going to tell you that in the imaginal world, you receive the spiritual realities otherwise inaccessible through reason and senses, through imaginal faculties and symbolic understanding. Ibn Arabi is going to tell you that the cosmos, human being, and the Quran are three books read together. Scriptural discourse saturates his method. What does it feel reading Ibn Arabi? As a reader, you're going to be exposed to dense, highly technical, aphoristic, symbolic language, heavy prose texts, though having some poetry here and there, but mostly prose, and he doesn't bother explaining much. He leaves that to the commentator, which is why for centuries commentators have been puzzled and baffled trying to understand what he's saying. We don't, not that we don't have, but most people even don't agree on what type of wahdat al-wujud, the unity of existence, Ibn Arabi is fundamentally talking about. So vague, so complex, highly technical vocabulary that makes it difficult to understand and engage with the text. So as an Ibn Arabi reader, you should be patient and you should be comfortable with paradox, with the ineffable. Now, Mulla Sadra is unique in a different way. As Sajjad Rizvi calls his method, his philosophy is philosophy as a way of life. His metaphysics joins rational argument to spiritual exercise, most famously known by Pierre Hadot, coming from the Stoic, ancient Stoic philosophy, where philosophy is not to learn through conceptual understanding, is not to memorize and understand certain theories, but to become, but to be formed and transformed by the texts, by the philosophy that you're learning. If you read Mulla Sadra, you're going to be seeing neither pure rationalism nor anti-rationalism. He's the grand synthesizer. He integrates reason, mysticism, theology, Quran into a coherent system, where he will be telling you that reality is a processual becoming, meaning that the change is in the very substance, not just accidents. Concerning the hermeneutics and scope, through Mulla Sadra's writings, you're going to be engaging heavily with Ibn Sina's metaphysics and with Sufi metaphysics, mostly with Ibn Arabi's thought. His famous work, Asfar Arba'a, that is the Four Journeys, is going to give you the scaffolding of Ibn Sina's metaphysics, though together with the critique of Sohrawardi, that is illuminationism, Ishraqi Hikmah, and insights from Ibn Arabi's metaphysics. As a reader, you will be immersed in technical, philosophical, systematic arguments with rigorous proofs. In Mulla Sadra, you have Ibn Arabi plus philosophy. In other words, Mulla Sadra is a more philosophical Ibn Arabi. With Ibn Arabi, you mostly have unveiling. Here you have unveiling and reason. Although we have this, the two in Ibn Arabi as well, but for Ibn Arabi, it's predominantly unveiling. So if you seek both, Mulla Sadra is your guy. If you want to be able to ground your readings, Mulla Sadra is your guy. With Ibn Arabi, you're not going to be able to do that. Ibn Arabi teaches you authoritatively. You need to learn that. Then you need to have mystical experience to verify. Otherwise, you cannot ground them. I'm not saying this as in a negative sense. I'm talking about methodology. Ibn Arabi presents his unveilings. Well, so does Mulla Sadra, but Mulla Sadra rationalizes, systematizes, and grounds the content of his unveiling so that you, as a reader, can not only better understand, which is a very difficult thing with Ibn Arabi, whom I love, I'm not criticizing. It's very difficult to understand Ibn Arabi, but with Mulla Sadra, because of the systematic thought, it's easier to understand and it's you are able to ground what you're understanding, which is missing in the other figure. If you're all about mystical experience, Ibn Arabi is your person. If you don't want rational argumentation, you have that access, Ibn Arabi. If you're like me, either Mulla Sadra or a combination of Ibn Arabi and Mulla Sadra. Then the question is, where does Rumi fit? Rumi's project is pedagogy, that is education through storytelling, through narrative, through poetry, and establishing love as an ontological force, propelling you on the mystical journey. In Mathnawī and Fīhī, we see Rumi as an instructor of ethics and morality and spirituality, but predominantly, of course, in Dīwān, we see the intoxicated Rumi, the selfless Rumi who wants to make you intoxicated and makes you selfless so that you have that experience yourself. He's going to present parables and narratives. He's going to be decorating those with Quranic verses, with prophetic hadith, so that he awakens you to morality, moral perception, and importantly, mystical experience, inner realization through love. Rumi is going to be introducing love as an ontological force, as the spirit of the cosmos, as the fire of Tawheed, that is divine oneness. As a Rumi reader, you will be exposed to lots of affective narratives, parables, of course poetry, but behind those simple, easy-looking texts and verses, there are deep fundamental truths that you need to decipher. As a Mulla Sadra reader, you're going to be wrestling with three fundamental principles. Number one, asalat al-wujud, the primacy of existence. For Sadra, existence is the fundamental primary reality. The essences are mental abstractions, not the fundamental base. Number two, gradation or modulation of being, that is taḥqīq al-wujud, where Mulla Sadra is going to be telling you that existence is one but graded, meaning having different intensities. The created beings in the world have one existence, but the intensity of their existence differs one from the other. He's going to be talking about horizontal multiplicity and vertical multiplicity. In vertical multiplicity, Mulla Sadra is going to be telling you that the higher you go, the purer and simpler and more intense existence. Prime matter, vegetables, animals, humans, finally culminating in God as the pure existence, undelimited existence. And through vertical multiplicity, Mulla Sadra is going to teach you that even among vegetables, let's say, even one plane of beings, there are variations of kinds and other technical terms I will not bore you with. Among humans, there are different kinds. Taken together, the horizontal and vertical multiplicity reconcile multiplicity in the world with the oneness of existence. Third, and importantly, he's going to be talking about harakat al-juhariyya, the substantial motion, where he asserts that change is in the very substance, not just accidentals. Who should you read? Well, that's the question that you should be answering, depending on your temperament, your purposes, your likes, and the methodology you want to engage with. All three converge on the ultimate goal, but their paths differ. All three want to transform you, not just inform you, but their methods are different. So which method are you more comfortable with? Which method do you think is valid? Some people, even though within a religious tradition, are not comfortable with all unveiling discussions. There is credit to unveiling for some people, but they need to be grounded. If so, you need to go with Mulla Sadra. Or if you want to comprehend everything through unveiling, Ibn Arabi is your guy. If you are a seeker without academic interest, I would say don't go near Ibn Arabi, don't go near Mulla Sadra and read Rumi. Not that Rumi's project is simple, it's just that it's audience friendly because of the purposes he's having. He's not targeting the elite, he's targeting everyone. But Mulla Sadra and Ibn Arabi are not targeting the public, they're targeting the trained ones. But to help make your decision more informed and easier, there are several other elements that you need to consider. Let's examine them. An important factor here is the nature of the three thinkers' discussions, what problems each loves to discuss. For Ibn Arabi, of course, it's going to be ontology, unity of existence, the undifferentiated, undelimited essence of God as pure existence. He loves talking about imaginal world, imaginal cosmology, prophetic knowledge, and the perfect man. You're going to be seeing scriptural stories reread through the imaginal lens and the names as relations of God. For Mulla Sadra, you're going to be grappling with the metaphysics of being, ontology. You're going to be dealing with epistemology, with the proofs of God's existence, soul-body psychology, eschatology, the imaginal body. This is a very interesting discussion. And the journeys. For Rumi, you're going to be hearing love. It's everywhere. Then self-transformation, the ethics of love and humility, and the pedagogy of trials and suffering. Now, who should you read and why? Again, it goes back to your temperament, training, purposes, and interests. You just use this video as choose your own path compass. All three ultimately converge on knowledge that transforms the knower. On this channel, we have numerous videos on these three figures, so that is a good place to start. But if you want readings, I will suggest some specific papers that will help you initially. But if you want a systematic metaphysics, rigorous arguments, and mysticism, start with Mulla Sadra, because he's going to be giving you clearest argumentative architecture for issues like existence, essence, divine proof, soul, and afterlife. He integrates spirituality without abandoning proof, and that is unique. As a starting point, I would suggest reading an overview of his primacy of existence, gradation or modulation of existence, the substantial motion, before you start getting into the details of Asfar. But as a warning, reading Mulla Sadra requires Ibn Sina basics to enjoy the ride. However, if you seek experiential metaphysics and symbolic hermeneutics, I would suggest you start with Ibn Arabi, because his method of taḥqīq marries chronic exegesis to unveiling, balancing the two eyes, that is reason and imagination, offering a cosmology you can practice. But again, grounding them will be very difficult. A good starting point for you would be to begin with selected themes like divine names, imagination, perfect man, Insan al-Kamil, before diving into technicalities of Fusus al-Hikam or Futuhat. But also as a warning, Ibn Arabi could be read as a vague pantheism if you skip his technical ontology vocabulary. Thirdly, if you want ethical and existential transformation through story and poetry, and not so systematic discussions or in-depth discussions, and by in-depth I mean systematic writing, I would suggest start with Rumi. If you're an artist, therapist, I don't know, educationer or general seeker, Rumi is your guy. But still, it's not mutually exclusive. You can still be a general seeker, but read Ibn Arabi. Rumi is going to be teaching you through stories and narratives, amazing poetry, very emotional, imaginal, reshaping attention and desire. Love is the grammar of Tawheed, that is oneness for Rumi. And a good starting point could be reading some of the tales from Mathnawī, like The King and the Handmaiden, or iconic poems from Mathnawī like the Song of the Reed. But a strong warning is to avoid quote post Rumi, Like you see on Instagram and everywhere, there are lots of quotes from Rumi. First of all, many of them don't belong to Rumi. They're just made up, simply. Second, Rumi's project is not to be like repeated and reshared as just one single quote out of its context. Context matters. Context is important. Rumi should be understood on his own thought. That's why one of the most distorted figures, if not the most distorted figure in the entire history, is Rumi. People take him in every direction that they like and call it pluralism. Now, let's say you read all these three. What will you be able to talk about after reading these figures? With Ibn Arabi, you can talk about the unity of existence. You can talk about why imagination isn't just, imaginary. It's an ontological reality. It's a world. You can talk about how symbols mediate between God talk and world talk. With Mulla Sadra, you can talk about how the self itself, your very being, changes over time if substance itself is in motion. How the self becomes more by knowing more. How the spiritual journey is led in a rigorous systematic framework. We can talk about why proofs of God's existence look different once existence, not essence, is fundamental. With Rumi, you can talk about why a parable can out-argue an argument. How love frames suffering and duty, and how love forms life. When it comes to reading burdens for Ibn Arabi, the burden will be with symbolic density, unfamiliar technical terms, and Quranic literacy, not systematic discussion. From Mulla Sadra, the burden is with the technical metaphysics and long arguments, like philosophical rigor, and it also needs background in Ibn Sina. For Rumi, the burden is very subtle, and many have been suffering this. The simplicity of his poems is deceptive. You think that you understood what he said, but you don't. When you read commentaries, you see that something much more profound is happening there. Yes, poetry is open to interpretation, but shallow interpretations are not the intention of this great mystic poet. His stories demand slow moral and spiritual digestion. Lastly, I would like to give you several sources to start from. For Ibn Arabi, William Chittick's entry on Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy is an excellent entry point. For Mulla Sadra, of course, Sajjad Rizvi's entry in the same encyclopedia is amazing. But for Rumi, I suggest two essays, one from Mujaddadi, the other one from William Chittick. I will be linking these in the description so you can directly access the papers. I hope this video helped you. There is no one final winner here because we have different aims, we have different backgrounds, we have different interests, and we have different intellectual, spiritual capacities. Considering all these, you will be deciding who to read and follow. I just elaborated some reasons, gave you, I'm hoping, a broad perspective, helping you make the final call. If you have any suggestion or something that I have missed in scripting this video, please feel free to drop it in the comment so that others may benefit from. Like I said during the video, this channel has many videos for all three thinkers. And through these videos, my aim has been to give you bite-sized, clean, clear snapshots into these thinkers' thought.